why doesn't Ford recall these transmissions, John? They've got so many of them failing. What we do know is they know they have a problem.
They know it. Yeah. Absolutely, they know it.
And I bet you they know when it fails most, which engine it fails most with. They have all the data that we don't have.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting was your proposed Ford Goodwill service campaign.
Oh, yeah. Well, hello and welcome to the Bumper to Bumper podcast. I am Dave Riccio here along with Jon Riggle, and together we're putting you in the know when it comes to your car. What are the normal expectations around car repair? How long should my car last? When should it break? When shouldn't it break? What should I expect? And what are the base understandings of a transmission? And where this comes up is we've got this Ford 10R80, which there was over 6 million of these produced in the years between 2017 and 2022, and they had a component in them called a CDF drum that failed, and some were start failing as early as 30, 40,000 miles.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of this. We've got this customer in our bay the other day. His name is Mike, and Mike is a Arizona native, and he's driven a Ford truck ever since he was 16.
Wow.
Bought one used out of high school and drove it. When that one was done, he bought himself another Ford truck.
Sure.
And then got married, bought his wife a Mustang. This guy's a Ford guy. He literally has the oval hanging in his garage.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So he has this F-150, 2018 Ford F-150, and starts to have transmission issues. So he goes down to the dealership. He takes it in there, and we're not talking about a bunch of miles, 48,000 miles. And he takes it in there, and they check it out, and they said, yeah, your transmission's bad. And it's going to be $11,000.
That hurts.
It hurts a lot, especially when he's paid $50,000 for the truck. And he's saying to himself, $11,000, this thing's only got 48,000 miles on it. Can you guys help me out here? Nope, that's just the way it is. And here he is, a loyal customer. Now, Ford puts a 5-year, 60,000-mile warranty on it. Well, he was out by time.
Yeah.
But he wasn't out by mileage, and so he's upset. Well, he comes and sees us, and I've heard this complaint many times around this 10R80.
Yep.
And so, we diagnosed it. It's got a bad CDF drum. Don't necessarily have to throw out the transmission, replace it. We pull it out, we fix it, to the tune of roughly $3,800.
Yeah.
And he's happy with that, but he's mad at Ford. And so why doesn't Ford recall these transmissions, John? I mean, they've got so many of them failing. What we do know is they know they have a problem.
Oh, they know it. Yeah. Absolutely, they know it.
They recreated that part, and I bet you they know when it fails most, which engine it fails most with. They have all the data that we don't have.
Yeah, yeah.
So what we don't know is we don't know what the failure rate of this thing is.
Yeah, we don't know. We know what we see, and we see a big percentage of our business now is doing 10R80s.
10R80s.
I mean, it's just it's a lot of them, and but like I say, out of the entire fleet out there, I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know if it's 1%, if it's 0.1%, if it's 10%. I don't know what the percentage of failure is.
So everyone knows Ford's got a problem with this 10R80. So people say, why don't we recall it? Or what doesn't Ford recall it?
Yeah.
We all know about the Ford Pinto. That thing got recalled, but that was different because that was a safety issue.
Safety issue. Yeah.
So we got to define what is a recall. And a recall is related to safety. So if a vehicle had an issue with the brakes locking up at 80 miles an hour, that would be recalled. You know? But if it doesn't have a safety concern, well, then it's not a recall. It's not something mandated by the government or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the trick with the CDF drum deal is that there are transmission recalls for safety where we had issues with some of the Allisons would try to, go into reverse, while you were driving forward and stuff. And we've had issues with shift interlocks and things where the cars wouldn't necessarily stay in park when they were supposed to be in park. That's a safety issue.
Yep.
The rollaway issue. We had issues with some of them that would shift from, 6th gear to 1st gear. And
about throw you through the windshield.
Yeah, that one was kind of a pretty obvious safety thing. But with the CDF drum, we're generally talking about poor shift quality, right? So they don't really cause the vehicles to stall. They don't do anything that technically would be a safety issue. It's a shift quality issue. So right there, that kind of rules out recall, right? Yeah.
Now, on the flip side of that, when a auto manufacturer decides it wants to take care of its customers, so they do a service campaign.
Yep.
And they say, hey, we realize we have a higher than normal rate of failure. And granted, if products were perfect, we wouldn't have warranties, but we have warranties because products aren't perfect.
Yeah.
And there is a base level expectation of how long a part or a component should last. And so a service campaign is when the manufacturer says, hey, we're going to go ahead and extend the coverage beyond the 5-year, 60,000 mile mark on the transmission, for instance. But Ford has not done that in this case.
Yeah.
We don't know what the percentage is, but where I came up with 6 million, and it's 4.5 million F-150s, and I'm only talking the years 2017 through 2022.
Right.
So there's 4.5 million is that, and then we've got Ford Rangers, we've got Ford Mustangs, we've got Ford Expeditions, we've got I'm trying to think what else, the Lincoln version, Navigate.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got a bunch of them out there, but the F-150 is like the most popular truck, so that's what we relate to.
Right.
And right now, you said, John, it's a lot of what we're seeing. We have more 10R80s in our shop than anything else right now, and I think if I were to count right now, we probably have 6 or 7 going through our shop, or at least this last week.
Yeah.
And they're not all CDF drum failures, but for the most part, it's
most of them are.
Pretty dang common.
Yeah.
So that's the numbers on it. So we do know the CDF drum has a problem. Ford knows the CDF drum has a problem. So they've remade the CDF drum, and they fixed the issue, putting a shelf in there that keeps the sleeve from moving in the drum. And but what we don't know is we don't know that percentage. And if you were to take a wild guess, because that's the reason they haven't done a service campaign, I'm sure somebody who's a bean counter, and Ford's, I'm sure, got plenty of bean counters. They've done the math as far as how many of these things are failing, what it would cost them, what would they get for it, you know. And so they're weighing all those things out. Reputation, is the reputation going to take a hit?
Yeah.
Do we want to do something about it? And I think they're making a mistake because we think of Mike's story. I mean, this guy is probably going to take that blue oval off the wall in his garage because he's like, well, here I've been supportive, I've been loyal, and they have not been loyal to me.
Right.
So maybe he's doing that. And by the way, if you have a 10R80 experience, in the comments, tell us about your 10R80. Maybe it works great because a lot of them work great for people. You know, so if they're not falling in, let's say, that 5% of issue, the other 95%, I think it's a pretty dang good working transmission when it's working good.
Yeah, it works great.
So comment as far as what your experience is, when you had a failure, when you went to the dealership, what did they do for you? Did they offer any sort of compassion or like, hey, we'll help you out with that. We know this thing is just out of warranty. And
let us know if you've got a 10R80 that's got 250,000 miles on it and hasn't needed anything.
Yeah,
I would really like to know both sides because I noticed in some of the comments there were people that says, you know, I've got 2 of them and I've had no issue with it.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm kind of curious. I'm really curious as to what the failure rate is.
And here's the thing about the internet is that, you know, and it goes for all transmissions. People say, oh, I got a Toyota such and such, and I got a transmission problem I got online, and apparently there's all kinds of problems. Well, there isn't all kinds of problems. It's just no one reports when it works well. They only report when there is a problem. So it's skewed just by the way you look at it. So everything you find is going to be a problem. And so I see people say, oh, yeah, these things are terrible. Not necessarily in relation to the Ford, but in transmissions in general. They say these things are terrible. But at the same time, maybe that's not what we're experiencing. So so I would be curious to see in the comments how many people, we'll go with that percentage, how many people have had a great experience with their Ford 10R80, and how many people are in Mike's situation where they're upset at Ford and maybe they're vowing never to buy a Ford again.
Well, and we have to weigh that too because we're not just picking on Ford here. It's an interesting conversation to see how we get here and what happens with it. But we've had other major failures like this for other manufacturers. You think of GM and their AFM systems.
Oh yeah.
You know, those things have been pretty much a disaster from day one. And you know,
the other one I think about is the Honda Odysseys. You know, Honda was traditionally a compact car. and they had
Yeah.
4 cylinders.
Yeah.
Well, in like 98, 99, they decided a V6 was a good idea, and they make a great V6. That thing runs like a scolded dog. I really like the motor. But then they also doubled the size of the car. So
Right.
it was a compact car. Now a Honda Accord is as big as a Lincoln Continental end to end if you were to measure it.
Yeah.
So the horsepower tripled, and then the size of the car doubled. And the weak spot became the transmission. So that technology that they ran was no longer working. And there was a mass amount of failures. And that one was a class action lawsuit where Honda did have to extend their warranty for certain 99, 2000, 2001 Odysseys. And I think they went to 9 years and 109,000 miles where they stepped up and had to take care of it.
Sure.
So that's one of them. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones.
Oh, we had remember the old Toyota head gaskets on the 3 liters?
Yes.
That's like every one of those things leaked out of the head gaskets, and Toyota was just doing those things left and right, left and right. We had the Toyota Tundra engines. We had Hyundai oil consumption problems. And everybody's kind of handled it different, with the Hyundai oil consumption problems. They extended the warranty out. I mean, they had a pretty good powertrain warranty anyway to 100,000.
7 year, 100,000.
But we've seen them cover them at, more than 100,000. There's been times they've stepped up to the plate. I mean, we've sent a couple over to the dealer that came in here and we're like, you ought to at least talk to them and see. And sure enough, they put engines in them.
And that's one thing to check that we do on a regular basis when a car comes in. You say, hey, TSB, or check for a service campaign on it when we're going through it. And we call up Ford or GM or whoever it is and say, hey, run this VIN and see if there's any sort of service campaign on the transmission that extends. So and people will buy a transmission from an independent they wouldn't have had to buy if it was covered under warranty, but they may not know about it. So that's the thing. That's one thing that...
there's a warranty extension on some of the Subaru CVTs.
Oh, yeah?
Right? Yeah,
absolutely.
They extended those like 10 150s, so you got to kind of watch out for those, because they'll roll in here and it's like, oh, yeah, there's an extended warranty on that.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother story. I don't want to segue too far on that, but I've seen cars come into us where they left the dealer with a quote, and we checked it out, and there's a service campaign. So we just take the same car back to the dealer. We have the transmission replacement. We call them and say, hey, you need a new transmission, but it's free. We got it handled for you.
Yeah, so we're not really picking on Ford. We're just curious why it's gotten to this point, if the problem's as big as we think it is, but it sure looks like it's as big as we think it is, judging by all the stuff you can see on the internet. About 10 R80s.
Yeah, maybe you work at Ford and maybe you have some insider in knowledge. Put that in the comments too. I have no idea. It's a good way to lose your job.
What I liked, you did a bunch of research on this and looked this over and stuff. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was your proposed Ford Goodwill service campaign.
Oh yeah.
I think we should talk about that. It makes some sense as opposed to just doing a blanket warranty or recall or something like that.
Yeah, so if you work at Ford, I think this is a good idea. Not that you haven't thought of it, but so service campaign. Okay, so let's say you have a CDF failure and it's at 90,000 miles. Well, let's call it 75,000 miles. Okay, 75,000 miles for easy math. In my mind, I feel like the design criteria around an automatic transmission is 150,000 miles. It is a wearable item. It has clutches in it. They do wear out.
Nothing lasts forever.
Nothing lasts forever. And if they could build one that lasted forever, you couldn't afford it. Neither could I. And it also would be a very heavy vehicle.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think 150,000 miles is a reasonable expectation for how long I would expect a modern automatic transmission to last in my vehicle.
Yeah. So that would be it. So let's say you get 75,000 miles out of it. You had this CDF drum failure. Well, I think this is an opportunity for Ford not to run, but also just to get involved. You've got 75,000 miles out of it. You've gotten useful life, you know. So for them to give you a transmission wouldn't be fair to them. I don't think. And at the same time, if they just look the other way, maybe it's not fair to you. I don't know, but let's prorate it.
Prorate it.
So let's say they step in and they say, hey, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pick up half the bill.
Right.
And so let's just say it is, they pick up half the bill on the thing, and I would put a time limit on it. I think when you're past 8 years, I think that's enough time, on that service campaign, if I were to write one. But let's say you got 45,000 miles out of it. It's out of the 5-year, 60,000 mile warranty. So you ran out on time. You didn't drive it enough. But so I say if it's less than 50,000 miles, they take care of it. But beyond that, they prorate it. And so they're not taking on this huge, because let's just say they got 6 million of these things. and let's say the failure rate is 5%. So I just kind of calculated this out. 5% would be 300,000 units. That's a lot of transmissions.
That's a lot of transmissions. That's a lot of money. That's a big pile of money.
So I can see where that would be a huge financial implication to Ford. I mean, I don't want to, there's a lot of great people working there. They gotta be financially responsible with the decision. But I don't think it's black or white. I think there's some gray that they could take in, and maybe that's something you can leave in the comments too. What do you think they should do? Because sometimes I think consumers can get a little overly. They should take care of this, but the reality is nothing is perfect. If things were perfect, we would have
we
no
wouldn't have a
problems.
business.
So anyway, thanks for joining us to find out more about the 10R80. We have information on our website, other podcasts, and continue to develop more information in relation to the 10R80, just because it's such a huge deal right now going on in the industry. And we'll do another show where we look at the General Motors counterpart of the 10L80. There's that, 10R80. I confused the two. Yeah. They have interchangeable parts, but we're not seeing the same failures on the GMs. We're seeing different failures.
We see different failures on the GM, which is a real similar trend. So, like I say, they were all built in a joint venture.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for joining us. We will see you on the next show.